In this video, I'm going to show you how I paint the soft white fur on this sweet little Shih Tzu puppy. Before we jump in, if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss any of my new art videos. Okay, let's get started. I get asked a lot about painting white fur. It's definitely a challenge because it can be difficult to know which colors to use or how dark to go. Of course, the colors you use and the values you paint all depend on your reference photo. If you take a look at my reference photo here, you can see a mix of browns, blacks, and a few hints of warmer blues scattered throughout the puppy. The light is pretty much straight on, and there aren't any harsh shadows or blown out highlights. When I approach a subject like a white animal, I like to start wet and wet with very light suggestions of color. I paint inside the drawing using clean water. I'm using a Kolinsky sable round brush, which is a fine-tipped natural hair brush. It's wonderful because it holds a lot of water. My first paint mixture is a combination of Daniel Smith indigo and burnt umber. Together, these two colors make a beautiful gray. I start with the darkest areas of the puppy, areas that are darker coloring on the ears, and bits of fur that are in shadow. The two browns I use for those hints of brown in the ears are just burnt sienna and burnt umber. I'm just painting in a nice light base layer, using wet and wet so that everything remains soft and blended at first. As the first wash begins to dry, I start reinforcing my darkest values with more gray. I don't deviate much from those two main colors in this painting. Honestly, I could probably do the whole painting just with indigo and burnt umber. Between these two colors, I can cover my bases with both warm and cool tones. Even in this early phase of the painting, I'm careful to lay down brush strokes that are going in the direction that the fur is growing. Let your brush follow the contours of your subject's shape. I'm starting to introduce a more pure burnt umber to the sides of the face where I see brown in my reference photo. It's still watered down, but no longer neutralized by the indigo. I pull some of that brown into the lower portion of the painting, matching my brush strokes to the movement and shape of the strands of fur in my reference. Be careful to leave light highlights in the fur, especially in white fur. Build up your layers slowly and patiently. If you want to paint along with me but maybe feel like this video is moving a little bit too fast, click on the link in the description below for the full-length, real-time version of this tutorial along with my reference photo and sketch. While you're there, be sure to grab my free guide on watercolor basics. Okay, let's get back to the video. With the initial wash completely blocked in, I can now do a dark, more permanent layer of color on the ears. I'm taking a much darker mixture of indigo and burnt umber and painting with the tip of my brush those dark areas on the ears. Use your brush almost like you can imagine combing through the fur with a tiny comb. Allow some separation, some highlights to remain. With the ears done, I begin to darken the side of the face. I use quick swiping motions of the brush, pulling the tip of my brush towards the eyes, again to mimic the direction of the fur growth. Once I have a soft, light base layer of gray around the eyes, I can begin to paint the eyes themselves. I generally start with the outside of the eyes. Here I'm using a medium gray to indicate the eyelid and dark fur just above and below the eyes. In order for the eyes to look natural on a white dog, there needs to be some blending between the stark black of the eye and the white fur surrounding it. This can be accomplished with mid-tone grays and fur texture. I paint carefully around the highlight and white of the eye. For these tiny details, I've switched to my size 4 silver black velvet round brush. The white of the eye is never true white. Because it is in shadow, I fill it in with a value that is only slightly lighter than black. Now that the eyes are finished, I can see I need to darken a few strands between the eyes. Having your darkest value finished in a painting can really help you see where you need to go darker everywhere else. To paint the nose, I begin by outlining the blackest portion with my darkest paint, painting around all areas that are lighter in value. With a more watered down but still fairly intense dark gray, I fill in the nose except where the bright highlight is. There are quite a few dark strands of fur on the muzzle. I'm sticking with my smaller brush and using short, quick brush strokes to scrub on some fur texture. Be careful not to make any lines that are too dark or bold when you're painting fur, as that's sure to look unnatural. There's a definite shadow on the neck, so using my swiping motion with the brush, I create the shadow while also painting more fur texture along the left side of the dog. And there's our finished Shih Tzu. If you're wanting to paint animals with white fur, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button and check out my other videos on painting realistic animals. I'll see you in the next video.